I've been doing an ongoing series about being a content creator here on YouTube. Really, they're just Q&As, and people keep asking me questions, and I keep doing them. And I say, as long as people keep asking, I'll keep doing these videos. And I kind of keep a list of all the questions, and then when I get enough to actually do a video, that's what I do. I'll link to the playlist of all the ones that I've done before previously if you're interested in that. And then we'll start with this first one. People wanted to know, I think in one of the ones I mentioned about how folks were saying, how do you get natural in front of a camera? And I said, well, it takes practice, and not saying that I've reached that level either. I'm not saying that, but that I can see a progression in my very first videos till now, that I'm much more comfortable. So someone asked, could they watch those first videos? I will link to the very first video. I'll put that in the description below. But if you go to our channel page, just the home page there, and you click on the videos, then when you click on that page, it'll show all the videos, but right at the top you can kind of see, I think it's like latest, popular, and oldest. So if you click on oldest, it'll rearrange all those videos to where you can watch them in order, like from the very first one I put up, and then, so on until today. So that's if you're interested in going back and seeing those. Someone wanted to know what college I went to. I went to Tri-County Community College, just a community college right down, I don't know, about 10 minutes, 15 minutes from where I live. It's in Peachtree, a community of Peachtree. The address is technically Murphy, but that's where I went to college. Now, the first time I went, Matt and I were, I guess we were first married. I think I worked there 3 or 4 days, and then we got married. Maybe I'd already been going to school, though, I guess. It's hard to remember back in those days. After I started going to school there, I applied for a work-study program they had, and I got a job. That turned into like a real job, a part-time job. Anyway, but at that time I was going for, in those days they called it, I think it was office technologies or something like that, office administration. Really, secretarial, think of that, like that kind of work, or managing offices, those things. And I worked there, like I said, and then I had a little part-time job, and I started out in continuing education, then I got the real job, still part-time, but in the business office. And by that time, me and Matt were married. I heard about a job in one of the local plants. It's no longer here now in Cherokee County, but the Lee Company, the Lee plant up in Andrews. At that time, it was like the largest employer of Cherokee County. And I heard about a job there in the office, and I applied for it, and I got it. So I quit going to school because I took that job. It was a full-time job, had good benefits, and I stayed there until after I had Corey and Katie, and then I became a stay-at-home mom, so I didn't go back to work. But they had, really looking back, at some points, well, first I would say, let me finish the college, and then I'll say what I was going to say. It'll make more sense. But then, many years later, Corey and Katie I guess they were in high school, and I decided I was going to go back to school. Up until that point, I'd been a stay-at-home mom, and then when the girls went to school, I babysit a little boy, Alex. He was just like one of our children. I kept him from when he was 2 weeks old till he went to school, and then I also cleaned houses. So that was what I did. But when they went back to school, I decided I was going to go back to school. Well, by that time, that degree, I could have morphed it into something else. All my credits were still sitting there that I took, but I was interested in computers, so I actually graduated that time with a degree in computer technologies, which is more, if you think about like the mechanics of everything. I learned how to work on computers, not that I'm great at it or anything, but that was all part of it. And then also web development. I graduated with 2 degrees that time. So, and again, I quickly applied for the work-study program. That time my work-study position was in the president's office, and that turned into a part-time job for them, and then part-time job, I guess the first part-time job I had to become a real job with them was being a receptionist, and then that turned into a full-time job, and then I stayed there, and I moved into the marketing department and all that. Anyway, in those days when I was at Tri-County, my second go-round, I often thought, well, if I had stayed that first time, this is what I was going to share a minute ago, if I had shared that first time or stayed that first time and not left and went to the Lee Company, I'd be close to retirement, I'd be close to retirement. But every time I would think that, then my next thought would be, and I would have not been with Corey and Katie all those years that they were growing up. So I definitely think it was the right thing to do for them and for just our family, the way we work. Everybody has to make their own decisions. But even to this point, Corey and Katie, because they were twins, I had a very difficult pregnancy. I have a video about that I can link to if you're interested. But I had a really bad pregnancy. Turned out wonderful. They were born healthy and well. They were early and all that, but they were still healthy and fine. But it cost so much money. So the good part about going to the Lee company there was I didn't just have good insurance, I had the best insurance. I didn't know till I went to work for, this is a real rabbit hole I'm going down now, but I didn't know till I went to work for them that they were owned, and I don't know if they still are, but by the VF Corporation. So they owned Lee, Wrangler, Vanity Fair, maybe something else, I can't even remember. So they had a huge amount of employees and a huge amount of, I guess, purchasing power when it come to buying the insurance, the best insurance. So my insurance, and at that time, just so happened, of course I think this is God ordained this for me, that the insurance had started like a new little program about supporting mothers, supporting pregnancy. And I don't remember what it was called now, but once I was pregnant, I went right into that program, and my deductible for Corey and Katie was literally, no joke, $250. At $250, that was my deductible. And I was in and out of the hospital. I had, which is really high tech in those days, at-home monitoring, because my hospital was 2 hours away. Then I was, like I said, I'd spent different times in the hospital. Then they were early. It was just, I had a C-section. It was all those things. Anyway, I'm sorry, that was a long story about what college I went to. Has inflation affected Appalachia? Yes, definitely, just like it has everywhere else. I'm shocked every time I go to the grocery store, things seem like they're more expensive. And if you're somebody's bought groceries for a whole long time, you have in your mind what you think something cost, and maybe you pick it up and put it in the buggy or whatever, and then you look at your receipt and you're like, oh my gracious. It's like it's hard to not think of the staples that you've always bought at the price they used to be. So yes, inflation's definitely affected Appalachia, and I hear people talk about how hard it is to make it, if you have a family, and especially if you don't own your own home, if you're paying rent or something like that, because those prices have also went up. Who is my audience? That's a great question. So my audience is very varied. I would say there's people like me who grew up in, whether it's right here in my area or somewhere throughout Appalachia, that has the same kind of upbringing, and they're interested in the same things, and they may be my age, younger or older, but they have that same general interest as I do. So that's definitely a large part of it. There is a part of some people, there's a segment that they never lived here, but they used to visit here, maybe with their grandparents lived here, their aunts and uncles, something like that. So they have those memories. Like every summer I'd stay with Grandpa White, and we'd hoe the corn or we'd do whatever. There's also people that are just interested in the area, people that think, well, all I know about Appalachia is that cardboard cutout, I like to call it, that they hold up where it's all, moonshining, and people don't have any shoes and no indoor plumbing and all that, and they're just curious. They're just curious about it. There's some people that never been here, don't necessarily want to come here, but they are interested because they do genealogy, and their great-great-grandparents or whatever come from Kentucky, come from North Georgia, come from West Virginia, come from Virginia, all those places. And so they're interested in it because of that. Tennessee, all the places. I'll link to a great map of Appalachia, so if you're curious about the Appalachian Regional Commission, what they deem to be Appalachia, some of it is actually outside the actual mountain range, but it's because their culture and their heritage and stuff is tied so closely, their language, their food, all those things. Anyway, I will link to that. And then, of course, not everyone that lives in Appalachia was raised here, so there's people that just call this home that are interested. I've had a lot of people tell me, Tipper, I moved to the area, and I was curious I wanted to learn, I wanted to really be part of the culture once I moved to Appalachia. And so I, was searching for that, and I found you, and then I got to see, a first-hand look at what it was going to be like before I moved or even after they moved here. So lots of different various people. I have a lot of people that watch that are not from America, not just from Appalachia, but they're not from the United States. A lot of people in Canada, a lot of people all over the world. So I'm really appreciative to all my audience, no matter where you come from, or why you come. This was a really good one too. What would you do if the internet shut down and we couldn't make videos anymore? So what would we do if the internet shut down? Well, we've all become so dependent on the internet. It's hard to imagine a world without it. Of course, it could happen. I'll tell you another story from my Tri-County days. And when I was working in the marketing department, I was often sent to take pictures or to write about what was going on around campus. And this was a college class. It was a college class, but we actually at Tri-County had an early college, which means it's like a high school, but the high school students that go there, they're getting their high school classes, but hopefully, if everything goes right, they can also graduate with a college associate's degree. So this was a college class, but it was all high school students. I wish I could remember the exact terms. I can't. But the whole project, it was a project day. They were all presenting about projects. And the whole point of it was talking about people like, I can't remember the names of the terms. I wish I could, because it'd make the story better. But people like my mother, like Granny, who doesn't own a computer, wouldn't know how to turn a computer on, has never been on the internet. She doesn't have any clue and doesn't really have no desire. That's just not part of her at all. So there's those people, that kind of generational people. Then there would be people like me, who I didn't grow up. The internet wasn't a thing when I was growing up. Even when Matt and I were married, we didn't have a computer. We didn't have the smartphone wasn't invented. We didn't have any of that. And it was a long time before we got our first computer. Now, I did use computers at when I first went to Tri-County, the first time for that degree. I had a computer class, but I had just typed on typewriters, part of the office stuff. Anyway, but what happened is people like me, we had to adapt. We had to become where we did know what the internet was, and we did know how to use computers. And some of us went on to, like me, make my career doing things like this. With my blog, I write, that's an online thing. So I manage a website, all those things. But then there's the people, coming on behind us, like Corey and Katie, that they've never known a place that didn't have a computer. They've never known a time. So it was really, really interesting. And what was really interesting was, because they were high school kids, they made some of the cutest projects. But I remember one little skit where they did, when I was in high school, they said you need to write a term paper. It would have been, I went to the library, or if you were lucky enough to have encyclopedias at home, we didn't have that at my house, but you went to the library, maybe got the encyclopedia, and you took notes, and you done this, and you went to the little card catalog, and found whatever you were writing about. So they did a little skit where there was a person doing that and how long it took, and then the other person, of course, is like, oh, I'll just Google, hey Google, and tell me about, whatever it was. They were using as an example, whether it was the moonwalk or something like that. Anyway, it was really, really cute, and making the point, why would you do that? Takes so much time. They were kind of saying, we feel sorry for you having to go through all that. But it was fascinating. But after it was all over and the kids were gone, I was talking to the instructor and telling her how I thought it was so fascinating that I'd never really thought about it like that. And she's my age, so she's like me. She grew up without it, but then had to adapt, had to learn how. But I couldn't help in my mind thinking, though, none of us can help when we're born. I've always wanted to be born and wish I could be in the old days with the horses and the, really primitive. But I can't help it. God put me where I am today. And truthfully, I probably couldn't have made it back then. And then I sure wouldn't know how to do any of the stuff I needed to do. But so the same thing with those younger people. I thought, I hope there never comes a time that they don't have Google, they don't have the internet to actually ask their questions to. I still have a 2-3 bookshelves full of books, so if something happened and I could go to one of my reference books and say, oh, okay, I see I could use this for this, or this is how you make soap, or this is how you do that. So anyway, really interesting to think about. As far as for us, if the internet went away and I couldn't make YouTube videos anymore, we would just keep doing exactly what we're doing other than making videos. That's the neat thing, I guess, about our channel. now maybe I wouldn't be, I'd be talking to my own family, I guess, but I might talk about Appalachian language to them. I wouldn't have my audience on the blog or here on YouTube to listen to me wax poetic about Appalachia and talk about the beautiful language and how it just makes my heart sing and the landscape that we live in and all that. But as far as the day-to-day stuff, like we would still grow a garden, our family's really close, I'd still cook at home most of the time, you know, all those kind of things we'd still do. And as far as in a financial way, me and Matt are debt-free, so we wouldn't have to worry about that. Of course, we would still need money to, you know, if we needed to buy groceries and pay the light bill and things like that, if those options were still available. But both of us, you know, we could go get a part-time job, or, you know, I feel sure both of us have extensive experience in lots of different things that finding a job wouldn't be a problem. Again, though, you think, well, if the internet was totally gone, we might live in a different world where our job was here trying to find, I would be thrown back to those primitive days where your main concerns was food and shelter and water, you know, and that just took all your focus. So interesting to think about, but I guess the short answer would have been, I think me and Matt and Corey and Katie and Austin and Ira will be just fine if that happened. How long does it take to film, edit, and upload a video? It depends on what kind of video it is. So this one I'm doing right here, it won't take very long because all I'm doing is talking. And so there's not hardly any editing, and then, you know, it's it. If it's a video like my cooking videos, there's a lot of stopping and starting and maybe showing this angle and that angle. That takes more time to edit. If it's gardening, the same thing. Me and Matt do this, and then we go over here and do this and do that, so I've got to change all that. And then when you edit, you've got to watch for all the, you know, if I started over 3 times, whatever I was saying. If I let the camera run, I forgot to turn it off, and we're over there, and the camera's still over here running. You know, you got to look for all those things. And probably the hardest to edit is the day in the life. I just shared one recently, because you're keeping little clips of stuff over a length of time. You don't just do it in a week. I usually save it over, this one was May and June, so over 2 months' time. And then you've got to figure out how they make sense, and then the flow of the video, and then, you know, even remember what you were trying to do. I try to be very careful about putting those in the place where I know they're at, and I don't have to go hunt them. But all that makes those more difficult. So I guess it really just depends. Once you have it edited, if you have high-speed internet, which I'm blessed to have, I did not have when I first started YouTube, but it doesn't take long to upload now for me. I used to go to Miss Cindy's house. She had high-speed internet and we did not, so I used to go there and upload. Do I take my camera everywhere just in case an opportunity shows up? I really don't. Now, in one way I do, because we all today have cell phones, so I always have my cell phone with me. I could video on it if I needed to. But most of the time I don't. I either know that I'm going somewhere to video or I'm not. One of those things. And there's sometimes I sure wish I'd have thought and brought a camera, but I didn't. But I think that's a good way to do it, because then that lets you enjoy your time when you're not, feeling like you have to be on, or you got to think about those angles and all that, and you just go enjoy yourself. So I think that's a good thing. So I don't really take cameras with me everywhere I go, other than I do have my cell phone. How do we find out how to be monetized? Is there a book or a document or something like that? Or does YouTube notify you once you start a channel? They don't notify you. I mean, once you reach those metrics, I think, I may be wrong because it's been so long now for me, but I think then they start saying, you need so many more subscribers to be monetized, or you've reached this level, you only need so many more hours to be monetized. But there's not really a book that I know of, but YouTube does have help. You can, if you just researched how to be monetized on YouTube, theirs is probably one of the first ones that would come up. And it's just stuff you can read that tells you, what you need to do and how to go about it. And then there are tons of videos on YouTube. If you just search in the search bar there, how to be monetized on YouTube, you're going to find all kinds of information. And I would just look for, if you're watching those videos, they're all helpful, but look for like the most recent one, so in case something had changed since some of the older ones. But that's basically is either reading on YouTube's help, kind of their forums, or their, I I guess it's just their help topics, or Googling and finding you a YouTube video to watch is the best way to find out. And you can, doing that, looking at other people's videos, you can find out all kinds of tips and tricks and what worked, and things to keep in mind before you start your channel, after you started your channel, how to try to get it to grow, all those different things. Have we ever had YouTube remove a video or question one? We've never had YouTube remove one of our videos. And as far as questioning them, the only thing I've had happen is, and I have it happen fairly often, especially if one of my videos has music in it, like if it's Paul or Corey and Katie singing, or a combination, or all of us. And what happens is, if it's something copyrighted, usually what you'll get, I've never got like where you just period can't use it. What I get is a little message that tells me this song is copyrighted and you can still use it. This is not a strike or anything. That's what YouTube calls it, a strike. This is not a strike. You can still use it, but if you use it, you will be, you'll split the revenue with whoever owns the copyright, whoever owns that. And most of the time I just leave the song in there, even though I know I'm sharing some of the ad revenue. I'm sharing it with whoever it is that owns it. It's probably like a corporation or something, a holding company that owns it. But that's really the only thing that we've ever had like that. Probably because we don't talk about, we don't talk really about politics, and we don't talk about, I don't know, we don't have violence and those kind of things comes to mind. So maybe that's why I do hear about people having trouble with videos, sometimes not thinking about, violence or politics or something like that. But I think some of the homesteaders sometimes have trouble with videos where maybe they're showing how to harvest or slaughter their hogs or their chickens or something like that. But we don't really do those kind of videos, so that wouldn't affect us. But it's interesting. That's an interesting question, and I think I worry about, I don't worry about it, but I think for some people, sometimes it's not that they're doing something necessarily that is violent or anything like that, but it's just, it's not people, this is a better way to say it, I guess, if it's not people from YouTube, watching every video, because that's an impossibility. It's computer generated, like the algorithm checking and flagging for this or that, and then I guess a human is supposed to check and see, oh no, that's fine, or it's not. But I think sometimes that traps people, because it's not really something that's not legal or not supposed to be on YouTube, but that little algorithm or the little bot that's checking it flags it just because of, for whatever, doesn't fully understand what's going on or something like that. Is there a directory on YouTube with a little info about each channel? There's not. That would be really a neat thing, but it would probably be an impossibility, because it would just be so big, because YouTube is so large and growing every day. So it's probably be impossible. Now, a lot of channels, or all channels, have this. Some people I've noticed take the time to put some information and some don't. But there is like a little about that you can click on the front of the channel. And sometimes it's empty, and then sometimes people put something. But that would be the closest thing that comes to mind. You might find some kind of outside, like a third-party thing that aggregates. Again, it wouldn't be all the YouTube channels, I'm sure, because that'd be an impossibility. But like if you wanted to search for homesteading channels, or channels about Toyota trucks or whatever it is, you might be able to find some outside person that's kind of aggregated some of them. But I think it would just be an impossibility to list them all. It's just so large. So this is one not really about the channel, but where does the creek water come from in our creek, and then where does it go? Where does it dump out into? So we have tons of springs, natural springs, above my house here, back up the creek, as we would say, and that's where the water comes from that's in the creek. It originates at one of those springs, and then as it trickles on down through the mountains and the ridges and the hollers, more springs empty into it, and so it gets a little bigger. It's not a large creek though by any means. And then it goes on down the road, of course, and it empties into Brasstown Creek, and then Brasstown Creek empties into the Hiwassee River. Was Matt reluctant to participate in the beginning because he seemed shy? He wasn't. It wasn't that he was reluctant. He was all for this from the beginning. One thing about Matt and Corey and Katie, I've been doing the Blind Pig and the Acorn, my blog, since 2008. So they were kind of already used to being in the, maybe people, we go out in public, somebody come up to us and talk to us, and certainly used to be in their picture and their video being used on the Blind Pig and the Acorn. So it wasn't like it was a new thing. But it goes back to one of those first things we were talking about, those early videos when I said I didn't seem natural. That's just it for Matt. When you're put on the spot and you're the one talking to the camera, it's hard to relax. And so I think that's, a lot of people have noticed that about him too. He's much more relaxed in the videos now, and a lot of people read that as saying, well, he just seems happier to be there now, and used to he didn't. It wasn't that he wasn't happy to be there, but it's just that's how his awkwardness come forth, I guess. A lot of people in the beginning thought that he was mad all the time, which is comical to me. Of course, it's totally understandable to think that, because if he looked like he was mad or something, but comical to me, because if you knew Matt Presley, you would know that he doesn't do anything that he doesn't want to do. That's just him. That's the nature of his personality. There is no one going to make him do something he don't want to do, including me. So that part was always comical. But I think there was one video, it was funny, they were like, blink twice, Matt, if you need us to come after you, or something like that. It's funny, just playing a joke, But it was more in those videos that he was just kind of felt awkward and like, gosh, I'm a grown man and I'm talking to some camera. He just felt silly about it, but it wasn't that he was reluctant. This next one's really, really great one. Do people actually say mean things to you like in comments, or are they just expressing their opinions? Both. That's the easy answer, is both. They do both. That's one of the things I think it may have been in the last one that I said, if you have a YouTube channel, your feelings will get hurt, and that's true. They will, but it gets easier. I'll tell you that part too. And I already had some experience with that because of being a blogger for so long. So, you can go back and watch that one and hear what I said more about that, but I'll just answer this one. So, are they just expressing their opinions, or are they really mean things? So I'll give some examples. Some of them, I would say, are some of the mean ones. Let's just talk about the mean ones, or maybe not. Let's talk about the other ones where they're just expressing their opinions. Let's talk about that. Yes, definitely. And those, there's different. Like, one of the things comes to mind is because Matt and I garden, and we do some raised bed gardens. You can see these around me, but we also we till the land, like my parents did, their parents did, and their parents did, albeit they were using, oxen and mules back then. But so, for example, somebody might say, you probably didn't know, but if you research, you'll find out that you really shouldn't do that. You shouldn't disturb the, what's it called, biome or something. You shouldn't disturb the soil. You're really hurting your soil, and you shouldn't do that. And they might say it like that, like you probably didn't know, but if you research, you'll see you should never, ever till up the land. That's just not good. And then some people say, you're making me cry, you're killing your land, and kind of over the top kind of thing. But still, both of those are just expressing their opinion. They're just expressing their opinion, like you shouldn't do that. So that's not necessarily mean. It's just kind of like, well, you have to do you and we have to do us, and that's how it goes. So those are the ones that I would say are more like, that's an example of the ones that are just expressing an opinion. That's not mean, just saying, I don't think you should do that. If I was you, I would do this, those kind of things. And those don't bother me. They don't bother Matt. That's okay. We understand. Probably if we come to your house, we would say, I might not do that. But then we look at the world like, but I'm not you, and I don't live there, so you can do whatever you want to do, I have some weird quirks about, thinking about something like maybe, a good one is washing dishes. I didn't grow up with a dishwasher, and I just don't like dishwashers. I've been at places where people had dishwashers. I know how to fill them and how to empty them. Miss Cindy loved her dishwasher. She didn't have one here, but in Black Mountain. And she loved it so much that she insisted on getting me one when I was first married, and I never used it. I used it as storage. And then we redid our kitchen, and I took it out, and bless her dear heart, she bought me another one because she thought I would use it, and I did not use it. And that one, I knew by then, I was more settled in who I was. Like, I'm never going to use a dishwasher. I'm just not going to. And I donated that one. It's actually being used now. I say that, but I've never, now that I think about it, I've never seen it used there either, but in the church fellowship hall. But that's where it's at. It's over there. But she just really wanted me to believe in the dishwasher like she did, and I didn't. I just as soon wash them up. I don't bother me to wash dishes. I just like that. And maybe it's all in my head, but I think if dishes come out of the dishwasher that I can taste something on them, probably all in my head. But again, that's just one of my weird quirks, weird quirks. But I wouldn't necessarily go to somebody's house that had a dishwasher and say, I can't eat off your plates. Of course I eat off of them. I wouldn't do that. Anyway, but a lot of them are things like that, like not truly hurting your feelings, just saying, I wouldn't do that, you should do this kind of deal. And you're like, oh, okay, I can see that, but I'm probably still going to do what I'm going to still till the land, and I'm not going to get a dishwasher, those kind of things. But then for is there mean ones? Yes, there's definitely mean ones. Now, and even those I would put into two categories. Some of them are just ridiculously mean, just so silly that you can't even give them any credence. And those would be the ones like, is that really your husband? Or no, I misspoke there. Is your husband also your brother? Is your husband also your brother? Because that's, stereotype of Appalachia. But that's so silly. You're just like, you're just a crazy person. If you believe that, you're a crazy person. So a lot of inbred kind of those things. Do you have a still? Does everybody have a moonshine still? Those are just silly. That one's not even mean, but that's just silly. Mean ones, more the ones that I guess that would that are hurtful or that really hurt your feelings and get under your skin, or if they say something about, like, all of you, if you've been watching our videos for a long time, Katie has a baby and she's not married. So you can go back. I could even link to her video where she talks about that. A lot of people really understanding and a lot of people not so understanding, but mean stuff about that and really tearing Katie down, those kind of things, that hurts. Hurts you and hurts her too. Of course, that's all in the past now, and that's just. But again, if you put yourself out there, you've got to be willing to take those kind of barbs. Some other mean ones that come to mind is like not often, but I have a lot of times over these years that I've been doing YouTube, is people wonder why Matt is with me, because he's a handsome man. I know he's a handsome man. He is handsome, but why in the world would he be with me? Then, maybe that I'm not attractive or that I talk too much, all those kind of things. Another one that comes to mind that we used to get, we don't get so much now, so maybe I tried to, I'll talk about how to handle comments. I think that's the next one, so I won't get there. I'll explain that there. But when Corey was first married, her and Austin, and she would show up here in our videos because Corey worked for me until she had to go out on, maternity leave. People would say stuff about her being here, like, why is she at your house? She should be at her house. And but just to the point of, like, it's become a joke with us now. There was one person that said, I can see that Austin's got 1 foot out the door. So we always were teasing now all the time, well, Austin, he's got 1 foot out the door because of Corey. But those I didn't think come from a mean place. They just didn't understand. So, like, I did a video and tried to explain about the culture of Appalachia. Like, when me and Matt was first married, it wasn't uncommon for me to be at Granny and Pap's. It's not uncommon for me to be at Granny's today. It's just such a family-centered culture that it's very common to be so close to your family that you just stay with them a lot. I think I shared this story in that video that I did to try to explain. There was families that I know that are not related to us, but so close they might as well be, that I've known all my life. And they told about how that even though they just lived a couple of miles from each other, like on Saturday night or whatever, they'd visit one with another. They all had a bunch of kids, and oftentimes they'd just spend the night, even though it wasn't far to go home. They just stay the night with each other, kids, husband, and all. And there'd be so many kids, they'd lay long ways on the bed, to sleep, and they'd talk and drink coffee and just laugh and have fun. And that's just kind of the nature of the family culture in Appalachia. So anyway, when I tried to explain that about Corey, why she was at our house, for one thing, we do a lot of videos, but that's still just a small portion of our life. So Corey was not here 24 hours a day. She was at home a lot. Plus she worked for me 2 days a week. Plus she helped Katie with videos. You know, there's all these reasons. She made her soap here. Anyway, I tried to explain that, but then I don't remember if it was like 2 or 3 of the same people kind of saying that. They basically just said, well, we'll stick around and see. Austin will soon leave her, you know. That don't make any sense. Corey needs to be at her house, not at your house. And those you're just like, okay. So it's like hurtful, but I'm glad all that happened because it really taught me something about the comments like that. Now, that was the next question. Well, first let me answer this one. Can you delete or edit comments? Let me see. No, I've changed my mind now. Let me go back to the first one, and then I'll answer that one. How do you handle those mean comments? So let me do that. So going through all that really taught me something. I don't need to explain. I mean, I can explain one time, but then if people don't understand, they just don't understand, and that's okay. And they don't have to. You know, I'm not the all supreme being of the world, and don't have all the facts and all the information compiled in my brain. I'm wrong on lots of occasions. But on something like that, where I know, of course, I know I'm not wrong, if they can't understand that we're just a really close family and that Corey and Austin are doing just fine, and Austin was here as much as Corey, just on times when the video was not on, because he works during the day. It would be in the evening when he was here. If they can't understand that, that's just okay. And that goes a long way and helps you if you do decide to have a YouTube channel and you get mean comments and stuff. Goes a long way to understand, and I finally got to that point that you don't have to explain yourself to everybody. I always wanted to, in the beginning I really tried to do that. Most of the time that somebody that's saying something that's kind of mean and you try to explain it to them, then they're just going to say something even meaner back to you, and then you're going to feel even worse. So it's better just to say, kind of have a rule that you can just let it go, or if it's really, really ugly, like the people, asking if Matt was my brother, just get rid of it, just remove it, just get rid of it. But it goes a long way to remind yourself that you don't have to explain every detail of your life. You don't have to get somebody to fully understand, because most of the time, like those people that was so concerned about Corey, makes me feel really bad for them. They must have just had not a family like ours that's so close. Because, I mean, it don't even make sense to me that someone would question why a daughter was at her parents' house. Now, if Corey and Austin was putting online that they were fussing and fighting and stuff, okay, but they're not, and they're literally not, but they didn't talk about that, But if Corey was bemoaning the fact that her marriage was falling apart, then yeah, maybe somebody could have said, well, maybe you should stay home more. But she's not doing that, and of course their marriage is a really good marriage. I'm so thankful for Austin. I couldn't have picked him out. If I had created him, it wouldn't have been as good as what he is. He's so wonderful. Anyway, so that's one of the things. If you're going to be a creator, you've got to learn to let those comments go, because it's human nature. You can have 100 great comments and one bad one that makes you feel bad about yourself, and you focus on that bad one. That's just human nature to do that. But you've got to figure that out, or figure out that you can't do that, and then you'd be better off to not be a YouTuber for sure. So then the next one is, can you delete or edit? That one that I asked first and then didn't answer. So you can do both of those. I mean, you can't edit. Sorry, you cannot edit. You can't edit somebody else's comment. Nobody can edit anybody's comment. So don't ever think a YouTuber can change what you said. They cannot. It's an impossibility. There's no way for me to do that. I can remove. YouTube allows you to remove a comment. So if it's like one of those about, is that really your brother too? You can just remove it and get rid of it. And then you can take it a step further. If that person just repeatedly is just really attacking you and saying ugly things, you can block them from your channel. You can block them. And that they don't know that you blocked them. That's one of the things about YouTube is interesting. They don't know you blocked them, and they can still watch all your videos and they can still comment on them. You just never see them again. You just never see their comment again. And also within that, YouTube they have, like for creators, there's a little place where you can kind of put words that you don't want to show up in your comments, and then they filter them out. So of course you think about the cuss words, common cuss words. Maybe you put those, and then you don't ever have to see those in your comments. Maybe you want to put political, titles or something, so you don't have no politics. You know, anything like that, you can put like little words, and then YouTube will filter those out and get rid of those comments. So if they have, even if they're cursing, or if they're if there's some topic you wanted to avoid, and then you put those, you just get those out. And so that's a way to monitor your comments. But I don't think that as a creator that you should feel bad if you have to remove somebody's comment because they ask you if you were inbred. You don't have to feel bad if somebody, you know, said something really just terrible about one of your children or your husband or yourself, that you should feel bad about removing it. You should just remove it. It takes a lot of work to maintain your channel. And one thing that I learned over the course of having my blog is you have to monitor the comments, because if you don't, what happens, the commenters begin to argue with each other. Maybe there is people leaving mean comments, there's two mean people, then they start leaving mean comments about each other, and it just takes away from what you're trying to do. So that's why YouTube created those little techniques of how you can remove a comment, or you can block the person eventually if they're just you know, just being really, really ugly. And then that way you don't have to worry about them. And your comment section, I love this. A lot of people on my videos, they say they come just to read the comments. Ain't that rewarding and wonderful that we're just all focusing on good stuff and sharing tips and sharing opinions? Like if you don't believe in tilling, and then some people say, well, my grandpa tilled and I tilled and my dad tilled, and then somebody else says, oh, well, but if you tried it without tilling it would be better. That's great to be able to share those differences, but just not be mean and ugly about it. That's an Appalachian and an old country word, maybe wherever you're at. Granny would tell me when I was little, don't be ugly. Well, what she meant was don't act mean. Don't be being hateful to your little brother or saying mean about him or something. You know, don't be ugly, Tipper. Now don't be ugly. And then I'll answer one more, end on a happy note after we had talked about the main comments. This one was just asked recently, and it was actually asked by someone that I did get to meet, Woody. So he said, if someone bumps into you, you know, how should they approach you? Is there some kind of like timing they should look for? No, if you bump into us and you see us like Woody did, Woody seen me in the wilderness. It was unusual for him to see me there. It was so nice to meet him, and really, really nice to chat with him a little bit. But if you see me, you know, at Walmart, at Lowe's, at Ingles, if I'm somewhere else, one time I was in, well, even when Granny was in the hospital, somebody come up to me in the hospital and 2 hours away, and they recognized me. Please just come up to us and say hello. That's all you got to do. Come up and say hello. There's no, you know, it thrills us to death. We love to get to meet people. So if you see us out and about, if it's me, if it's Matt, if it's Corey and Katie and Austin, or if we're all together, or if it's just one of us, just please come up and say, you know, hello, and we'd love to chat with you for a minute. And it's really rewarding to meet people and to hear why they watch us. I just run into somebody last week in Ingles, and she actually knew Corey and Katie, so we had that connection with the music, her children and music. And but then she told me about her mother calling her and telling her, I've watched this lady on YouTube and you should watch her because she sounds like your grandma. And that she figured out it was me, and you know, that was really nice. And so I loved hearing that. That was just wonderful to hear that her mother doesn't live here, but she'd found me and then told her about her, and she's like, I think I know her. I think that's the Presley girl's mom. And so then it turned out I was, of course, and I loved hearing that little story. And like with Woody, I loved chatting with him, and funny to meet him way over in the middle of the wilderness over in Swain County. But please do, if you see us out and about, come up and chat with us. And if you have more questions, add them to this. I said I'd keep doing these as long as people keep asking questions, because it is a unique thing to be a YouTube creator and to actually get paid to do that, to do what you love, in my case, which is to talk on and on and on about Appalachia. And I'm so blessed to be able to do that. It's such a rewarding thing. And of course, I could not do that without you. So I really appreciate you. And I'm always glad when you stop by to help me celebrate Appalachia.